The alien market smelled of oil, sweat, and pain. Cages lined the dusty floor. Inside each cage was a different kind of prisoner. Some old, some young, some angry, others too weak to cry. But one cage near the back held a small alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, covered in bruises. Her large eyes were full of fear. She wore torn rags. A thick metal collar was around her neck. Chains clinked softly every time she moved. She had no name anymore. They had taken that from her. Buyers walked past her cage. Some laughed, some spit. A few poked her with sticks, but no one bought her. She was too thin, too silent, too broken. She sat still, not looking up, not speaking. Her arms were tied behind her back. Her lips were cracked from thirst. She thought of her home, her mother, long gone now. All she had left were the chains. Then footsteps. Heavy boots. She didn't look up at first. Just another monster. She thought. But something felt different. The voice that spoke wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. "How much for that one?" the voice asked. She turned her head slightly. A human man stood there. Middle-aged, worn leather jacket, graying beard, tired eyes. He didn't look rich or dangerous. He looked sad. The trader laughed. "That one, worth nothing. She's broken. Can't talk. Probably half dead." The man looked at her for a long moment. "I'll take her." The trader shrugged. "Your loss." Chains clinked again as the cage opened. The girl didn't move. Her heart raced. This was it. Another monster. Another dark room. More pain. The human crouched beside her. "Can you walk?" he asked gently. She stared at him. No answer. He took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders. Then, without touching her skin, he slowly helped her up. She winced. Every step hurt. The other slaves watched in silence. No one spoke. No one dared. The man led her out of the market. It started to rain. Cold drops hit her face. Her legs were weak. She stumbled. He caught her before she fell. He didn't yell. He didn't hit her. He just picked her up in his arms and kept walking. They reached an old vehicle parked on the edge of the market. He opened the door and placed her inside. The seat was soft. Too soft. She hadn't felt comfort in a long time. She waited for pain to come, but it didn't. The man sat in the driver's seat. He turned to her and said, "You're safe now." Safe? What did that word even mean anymore? She stared at the window, silent, the coat still wrapped around her. They drove through forests and rain. Hours passed. She didn't sleep. She didn't speak. She stayed still like a statue. Finally, the vehicle stopped in front of a small wooden cabin in the woods. Smoke came from a chimney. It looked old but clean. Warm light glowed from inside. The man helped her out and guided her to the door. Her steps were slow and shaky. Still, he said nothing. Just opened the door and let her enter. It was warm inside. A fire burned in the corner. Blankets on a couch. A small kitchen. A quiet place. "Sit," he said softly, pointing to a chair. She sat down slowly. He brought her a bowl of soup. She stared at it. Was it drugged? Was this the trick? She waited. He didn't force her. He just sat across the room, watching the fire. After a long time, her hunger won. She took a small sip, then another, then finished the whole bowl. He smiled. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "That couch is yours." She looked at him, confused. "No chains," he added. "No pain." She couldn't believe it. She kept watching him, waiting for the change, waiting for him to shout or laugh or grab her. But he didn't. He stood up and walked to another room. Before closing the door, he said, "You're not a slave anymore." The girl sat there alone, holding the empty bowl. She whispered, "Why?" Tears ran down her bruised cheeks. She hadn't cried in weeks. But now, sitting in a warm room with no chains, no kicks, no darkness, she couldn't stop. Her chains were gone, but the pain was still inside her, burning. It was still raining when she woke up. The fire had burned low. The cabin was quiet. Her body hurt, but not from new wounds, just old ones. The bruises were still there, but no one had added more. That was new. She sat up slowly on the couch. The blanket had slipped off during the night. She pulled it back over her shoulders. The coat he gave her still lay folded on the chair nearby. Dry now. She looked around. The man was gone. Panic hit her chest. Had he left her? Was this just a trick? Her hands shook as she stood up. She walked to the door. Her legs ached, but she made it. She opened the door and looked outside. Rain poured down from the gray sky. Trees swayed. The ground was wet and muddy. And there he was, the human, kneeling near the edge of the forest, holding something in his arms. It was a small animal, hurt and shaking. Its wing was torn. It bled into his shirt. The man wrapped it in a cloth and whispered, "Easy now. You're okay." The girl didn't understand. Why save a creature that couldn't help him? She stepped outside slowly, the rain falling on her skin. She didn't speak, just watched. The man turned his head and saw her. He gave a small smile. "You're up." She nodded. He looked down at the hurt creature in his arms, found her stuck in thorns. "Same as you, maybe." The girl didn't reply. He stood and walked back toward her. "Let's get you both dry." Back inside the cabin, he gently placed the creature in a box with soft rags. Then he poured hot tea and handed her a cup. She stared at it. She didn't drink. He sat across from her again. Same seat, same distance. "I don't know your name," he said. She lowered her head. "Don't have one." "You must have had one once." They took it. Silence. "Would you like to choose a new one?" he asked. She looked at him sharply. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because you're not theirs anymore." She didn't answer. She held the tea close but didn't sip it. Her hands shook slightly. Later he lit the fire again. The cabin grew warm. She sat curled in the blanket watching the flames. The man stood up and went to the back of the cabin. A few minutes later he came back holding something. It was a box. He placed it on the table and opened it. Clothes. Clean, soft, small enough for her. "These were my daughters," he said. "She's gone now, but I kept them." She blinked. "Your daughter?" He nodded. "She died. A long time ago." She didn't ask how. She didn't need to. She could see the sadness in his eyes, the kind that never really leaves. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. The man looked at her for a moment. "Because I couldn't save her," he said. "But maybe I can save you." That night she washed herself for the first time in months. She stood in the small bathroom staring at the running water. It was hot. It didn't hurt. It wasn't sprayed from a hose or dumped from a bucket. She cried again, but this time it was different. She wasn't crying because someone hit her, or starved her, or locked her in the dark. She cried because someone gave her clean water and a towel. She came out wearing the old clothes he had given her. They fit well. She looked at herself in the small mirror on the wall. The girl in the reflection looked like a stranger. She stepped into the room quietly. The man was asleep on the chair. A book open on his lap. The fire still burning. She stood there for a moment. Then, without thinking, she walked to the couch, sat down, and for the first time in years she whispered a word to herself. A name. Not the one they called her in the cage. Not the number tattooed on her wrist. A new name. Her own. She smiled. Just a little. The fire was soft and low, but her heartbeat was loud. The girl sat on the couch in silence, the soft blanket wrapped tightly around her body. The man had left a pillow and a glass of water nearby. He had gone to sleep in the other room. No locks, no cameras, no guards. She was alone, free, but she didn't feel safe. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket. Her eyes stared at the wooden wall. She didn't blink often. Fear lived deep in her bones now. It never left. She laid down slowly, testing the softness of the couch. It didn't feel real. Slaves don't get soft beds. Slaves sleep on floors or not at all. This must be a trick. Her body was tired. Her eyes burned, but her mind screamed to stay awake. She curled into a ball, eyes wide open. Then the storm began, inside her mind. She didn't know when she fell asleep, but suddenly, she was there again. The cage, the chains, a face in the shadows, laughing, pulling, tearing. She screamed. She couldn't breathe. She reached for help, but no one came. She was back in the dark, back in the nightmare. A loud cry broke the night. She sat up, heart pounding, face wet with tears. The room was warm, not cold. There were no chains, just a blanket, a pillow, and footsteps. The man appeared at the door. He didn't rush. He didn't yell. He just looked at her gently. "You're safe," he said. She was shaking, her breath coming fast. Her arms covered her face like a shield. He didn't come closer. "I won't touch you," he said softly. "I just heard you scream." She stared at him, still half trapped in the dream. "Do you want me to leave the light on?" he asked. She blinked. Light? No one ever offered her that. "Yes," she whispered. He nodded. "Okay." He turned the switch on. The soft yellow glow lit the small room. Then he went back to his chair by the fire, opened his book, and sat down. She watched him for a long time. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't pretending. He really had done nothing. The next night she fell asleep faster. But the nightmares returned. She saw blood, heard screaming, felt the collar around her neck again. But something changed. This time when she cried out, she woke up and saw the man already by the door, holding a cup of warm milk. He didn't speak unless she did. She didn't ask why he stayed awake all night. She already knew. On the third night, she didn't scream. She dreamed of the woods outside the cabin, of the rain, of the tiny creature he rescued. It was flying in her dream, free. And when she opened her eyes, she felt the same, still hurt, still healing. But for the first time, the chains inside her mind were beginning to crack. In the morning, she walked to the kitchen. He was already cooking, eggs, bread. The smell made her stomach growl. He looked up. "Morning, morning," she whispered back. That was the first time she said it to anyone in years. He smiled. "Hungry?" She nodded. He made 2 plates, sat with her, ate with her. No orders, no rules, just food and peace. Later she stepped outside. The air was fresh, cold but clean. The trees were tall. Birds sang. She stood still, breathing slowly, eyes closed. No fence, no locked gate, just sky. She whispered her name again. The one she had chosen, softly, like a secret. It was hers now, and so was her freedom. She didn't know yet if she trusted the world, but she was starting to trust him. Days passed. She no longer jumped at every sound. She no longer slept with her eyes open. The cabin became familiar. The fear in her heart slowly faded, like smoke in the wind. But the man, he stayed quiet. Kind, yes. Gentle, always. But his eyes were heavy, full of something unspoken, pain buried deep. She noticed it every time he stared into the fire, every time he held the little creature now healing in the corner, and especially when he looked at her. One morning he left to collect wood. She stayed behind, alone, curious. She walked through the cabin, slowly, respectfully, each step careful. That's when she saw the shelf, a dusty corner near the fireplace, books, tools, and a small wooden box. old, locked with a simple latch. She hesitated, but something pulled her. She opened it. Inside was a photo. Two smiling faces. A man, him but younger, stronger, happier, and a girl, a small alien child, pale blue skin, big eyes, just like hers. She froze. The girl in the photo wore the same necklace she found in the drawer days ago. She touched it gently. Who was this child? Before she could ask, she heard the door open. She closed the box quickly, but it was too late. The man saw her. He didn't shout. He didn't get angry. He just looked tired. "You found it," he said. She nodded, scared. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean—" He raised a hand softly. "It's okay. You deserve to know." He sat by the fire, the photo in his hands now. "She was my daughter," he began. Her voice was quiet. "What happened to her?" His eyes didn't meet hers. "I bought her like I bought you." She gasped. She was being hurt, used, sold over and over. I couldn't stop it back then. But when I found her, I tried to save her. Tears sat in the corner of his eyes. "She was only with me for 1 year," he said. "Then she got sick. Too sick. The damage had been done long before me. I couldn't fix what others had broken." He swallowed hard. "She died in this cabin, right over there." The girl turned to look at the couch, the same place where she had slept, where the man gave her a blanket, a name. "She had your eyes," he whispered. "Your strength too." Silence. The fire crackled. Then her voice. Small, but steady. "Did you name her?" He nodded. "Her name was Lyra." She repeated it quietly. "Lyra." He looked at her now. "I see her in you. Not just in your face, but in how you survived. How you still breathe even after everything." Her lips trembled. "I'm not her. I know." He stood and walked to the door. "But maybe she sent you to me, so I wouldn't die with my hands empty." That night she placed a flower on the wooden table beside the fireplace. One she found outside. She didn't say anything, but the man saw it, and he said nothing either, because sometimes quiet speaks loudest. The next morning she sat by the window, holding the photo again. This time, her fingers didn't shake. She looked at the smiling girl, and then at herself in the glass. For the first time, she didn't see a slave. She saw a survivor. A second chance. The cabin was warm, but her chest felt cold. She stared at the photo of Lyra again, the girl who came before her, the girl who smiled with the same face, who died in the same room where she now slept. The man had saved both of them, but one still died. The thought haunted her. She put the photo back in its box and walked to the door. Her hand rested on the knob. She looked back. The fire was still burning. The coat still hung on the chair. His voice still echoed in her memory. "You're not a slave anymore." But what if that changed? What if kindness disappeared like it always had? She ran into the woods, barefoot, the cold, bitter skin. Branches scratched her arms. She didn't stop. She didn't know where she was going, she just wanted away. The farther she went, the louder her heart screamed, "Don't trust, don't believe, don't hope." The trees grew darker, the wind colder. Her breaths came in short, painful gasps. She collapsed near a broken log, mud soaking her clothes. She hugged her knees and sobbed. "I'm not her," she whispered. "I'll never be her." Hours passed. Night began to fall. She was shaking, tired, hungry, alone. That's when she heard it. Footsteps. She froze. Not slavers, not hunters, just one man. The human. He stood a few steps away, holding a blanket. He didn't speak. He didn't scold, he just knelt and opened the blanket with both hands. "I figured you'd come this way." he said softly. She looked down. I'm sorry, she whispered. I thought I had to leave before you changed. His voice didn't break. I won't change. She finally looked up, eyes red. Why? Because saving someone doesn't end when they smile. It ends when they believe they deserve to. She didn't run into his arms. She didn't cry again. She just stood slowly, walked to him, and let him wrap the blanket around her shoulders, and, for the first time, she let him walk beside her without fear. Back at the cabin, he made her sit by the fire. He gave her tea. He didn't ask questions. He just sat with her. After a long silence, she spoke. I thought leaving would protect me. And now? He asked gently. She looked at her hands. Now I think staying might heal me. He nodded. You don't owe me anything. She shook her head. Maybe not. But I want to learn how to live. Like her. He smiled, a tired smile, and whispered, Then we start tomorrow. That night she slept peacefully. No chains and dreams, no shadows waiting, only warmth, only light. She was hanging clothes to dry when she heard it, the crunch of wheels on dirt. The sound didn't belong. The cabin was hidden deep in the woods. No one came here, not unless they knew what they were looking for. She froze. A chill crawled up her back. She turned toward the road. A large black transport vehicle stopped near the edge of the trees. 3 figures stepped out, not human, not kind. Slavers. Her heart dropped. She backed away slowly, her breath shaking. The cloth slipped from her hand, she whispered. They found me. The man stepped out of the cabin, a piece of wood in his hands. He saw her face. Then he saw them. Slavers in long coats. Sharp eyes. Cold smirks. One of them raised his hand and shouted, There she is. The girl stumbled back. I'm sorry. But the man stepped in front of her, steady and calm. No one's taking her, he said. The lead slaver laughed. She's property, bought and paid for. We've got her record and we're here to collect what's ours. She's not property anymore, the man growled. She's a person. The slaver tilted his head. You think you can stop us? Alone? The man turned to the girl. Go inside, lock the door. She didn't move. They'll kill you. I've been ready for that since the day I saw her cage. She ran to the cabin, but instead of hiding, she stood at the window, watching, heart racing. The slavers moved. Closer. The man raised his voice. You want her? You'll have to go through me. The lead slaver pulled out a weapon, a low-energy pulse gun. Last chance, old man. But the man didn't flinch. He raised the axe from the chopping block. Heavy, sharp. She's not yours anymore, he said. She's mine to protect. What happened next felt like thunder. The slaver fired. The man rolled, the blast hitting the dirt. He swung the axe into the second slaver's leg. A scream. The girl covered her mouth, tears pouring down her face. The fight was short but brutal. Wood splinters flew. Fire sparks leapt from the ground. The axe struck. The gun fired again. One slaver fled crawling, the other lay still. The man stood bleeding from the side. But alive. She ran to him as he dropped the axe. His hands were shaking. You're hurt, she cried. He smiled through the blood. Only a little. But why did you fight them? He looked into her eyes. Because no one should ever have to go back to a cage. Later that night, she cleaned his wounds. Quietly, carefully. He winced but didn't complain. You shouldn't have risked your life for me, she said. I didn't, he replied. I risked it for what you mean now. She looked at him, confused. You're not just someone I saved, he said. Your family, she didn't answer. But when he closed his eyes to rest, she whispered one word beside him. Papa. His eyes opened, but she had already turned away, pretending she didn't say it. But he heard, and he smiled. Morning came with golden light, spilling through the trees. Birds sang softly. The air smelled like pine and peace. The girl stood outside the cabin, barefoot in the grass. Her eyes were closed. Her face was lifted toward the sun. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of what the day might bring. Behind her, the man was chopping wood, slower than usual because of his side. He was healing. So was she. She turned and walked to him. "I'm ready," she said. He paused and looked at her. "Ready for what?" She smiled, gentle, but strong. "To choose my name." That night they sat by the fire. She held a small, round stone in her hands, smooth, warm from her touch. She had found it in the river behind the cabin. "I've been thinking," she began, voice soft. He listened. "No one ever called me anything but numbers or things. I want something different, something mine." He nodded slowly. "Then pick what feels like freedom." She looked into the fire. "I want to be called Nira," she said. "It sounds like Lyra, but not the same." His eyes glistened. "It's perfect." She smiled wider. "Nira means light, in my language. Light that returns after darkness." He didn't speak, just reached out and held her hand. Later, that night, she carved the name into the wooden frame of the cabin wall. "Naira, year 1. She turned to him. "This is my first real year." The days passed with laughter. They built a small garden together. She learned to plant things, to cook simple meals, to fix the roof, to tell jokes. The hurt was still there, but it no longer controlled her. And the man, he didn't treat her like a child or like a ghost from his past. He treated her like someone real, someone home. One evening, while walking by the stream, Nira looked at her reflection in the water. She touched her face. No more bruises, no more collar. Her hair was longer now. Her eyes, once dull and empty, now sparkled. She looked alive. A quiet whisper escaped her lips. "I'm not a slave anymore." One afternoon, a stranger passed near the woods, lost, hungry. The man welcomed him, fed him, helped him find his way. Nira watched. The man turned to her and said, "You help next time." She nodded. "I will." Seasons changed. The forest turned red and gold. The man sat in his chair watching the fire like always. Nira sat beside him, reading from an old book. She closed it and said, "You saved me." He chuckled. "No, Nira. You saved yourself. I just gave you a chance." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then thank you and for the chance." Outside, the wind blew gently. Leaves danced across the porch. Inside the cabin, peace lived quietly between two souls. One who had lost a daughter, and one who had finally found a father.